The issue is many of us have somewhat of a blockage that is blocking our desire to do a thing.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So the issue ain't discipline, the issue is desire.
Go live!
Yo, what's going on, everybody, man? This is your boy Patrick Isaiah Washington, and this is yet another episode of Go Live, brought to you by BH Productions. And I am here with my guy, Chris James. What's up with you, bro?
Man, I'm loving life, man.
Man, yo, so what we just heard was some amazing poetry, man. Tell me just a little bit about like the start. Like where does poetry enter into your life? How does that happen?
Man, poetry entered into my life in the 7th grade when I discovered that my brother Rod wrote poetry.
Okay.
And I was like, man, that's cool. Like my brother, this hard dude, you know, from North Little Rock. He outside doing all the things that they were outside doing, but he was writing poetry and telling stories. And I was like, man, I want to do that too. And that's where it was birthed in my life, you know. So yeah, man, 7th grade, North Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's crazy, man. So I know in the space, especially in the South and being a black man, there's a stigma, you know what I'm saying? There's the culture, you know, a lot of times wants to kind of just place something on you. And a lot of times, you know, poetry is not looked at as the most like masculine thing. You know what I'm saying? Like most dudes that, you know, maybe have a gift in poetry, they fall to rapping. Like, what was it about poetry that made you say, you know, I'm gonna be in this space?
Yeah, I mean, well, I say, man, poetry has always been gangster. I mean, Tupac was a poet. I mean, some of your favorite, what artists that you identify as rappers, are poets, right? Awesome. Rap literally means rhythm and poetry, right? Okay. If you look at the early birth of poetry or rap and hip hop in New York, you would hear the poets just saying their poem to a DJ scratch and his beat. So poetry has always been what I would say the mother of what we know as hip hop. So for me, it was easy to gravitate towards it because I felt like it was just. I feel like poetry is masculine, right? I feel like, poets, since the beginning of our time, they were the griots of our community. And there was nothing, I guess, soft or weak about, continuing the stories of our history and our ancestors. So yeah, man, it's always been in me. It's always been in our ancestors. Poetry is all through the Bible. Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Definitely. So I know you say you were listening to your brother, and your brother was telling stories. I think storytelling is a very important piece for culture this time, and then even people becoming relevant, in a space, because our stories are what make us all different. Talk a little bit about where your inspiration for your particular storytelling comes from.
Yeah, man. So my first book that I wrote was called The Odds Against Us. It was actually my first stage play too. I wrote a stage play it was a choreo poem stage play. So every scene was a poem. And that style of playwriting for me was inspired by Ntozake Shange's play For Color Girls. Okay. And but I wrote that play, and which also the play became a book. Because I wanted to paint the picture of our reality. At that time I was working in an alternative school in North Little Rock. It was North Little Rock Academy. But working in that school, I saw me every single day, right? Meaning I was 16 when I became a daddy, right? I just dropped off my 18-year-old son at college last week. So amen to that. But I was 16 when I became his father. I was 16 when both of my brothers went to prison for 25 and 40 years. Wow. And the story goes on. Right? All these stories are familiar, but I like to focus more not on the story, but on the story of the trauma, but the story of the healing. But during the introduction of my poetry, or my introduction to writing poetry, I talked a lot about what those odds against us was as Black people in poverty. But also I wanted to talk a lot about what it looked like to overcome it. And that it was possible to overcome it. So my earlier poetry was all of that. It was, this is what we going through, and shit is hard. So that's what it was. I wanted to show people what it looked like to live in the hood.
Got you. So with that being said, man, and that being true to you, I know that there's a level of vulnerability that comes with that. And a lot of times in our black community, especially as men, that's one hard thing for us to do. So talk a little bit about like where your mental health has to be able to be vulnerable with, in front of audiences where people don't know who you are.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up black male mental health.
Yeah.
That's something we don't talk about. Again, what people don't talk about often is that men and boys every single year are 80% of the suicides that happen in America.
Yeah.
Right. So last year and the year before and the year before, around 48 to 49,000 men, 48 to 49,000 people died by suicide in America. Every single year, men have been 80% of those. So around 38 to 39,000 have been men and boys. So that right there is clear evidence that there's a crisis going on as it relates to black male mental health.
Yeah.
So I say all the time, man, that men need to be vulnerable, or what's going to happen is we're going to choose death by suicide. We're going to crash out, as the young people would say, right?
Yeah.
So I run a statewide program here in Georgia called Black Boys Better. So I hire mental health practitioners to provide services and programming for black boys.
Yeah.
And something we talk about as it relates to suicide and black boys is that black boys don't only choose death by suicide by putting a gun to their head or cutting themselves, right? Black boys also choose death by suicide through homicide.
Yeah.
And that's to the point of what we talk about crash out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So when a black boy or even a black man says, I'm about to take somebody else's life, right?
Yeah.
What they're saying is that I'm so emotionally exhausted, I'm tired of being in the amount of pain that I'm in,
sure.
that I'm about to take out my pain on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, I guess all the way back to your question, I guess why does it matter to be vulnerable? Because if I don't keep letting this stuff out, right, this stuff is going to come out in the form of anger or violence, which is what we're seeing every single day. Right. Black men and men aren't killing the women in their lives or killing the people who look like them just because they woke up and said, I want to kill somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
They're doing it because they haven't adopted the skills to cope with the pain that they're living with every single day.
Dope. I love that. So a thought that came to mind while you were speaking on that is, so lack of being vulnerable, messes up you mentally to be able to retaliate against somebody else. What I also know is that poor mental health can cause poor physical health. So what do you do? What are some things that you would say? I know people, that they get so stressed out where it's like, yo, I just gotta go take a smoke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I gotta, take in something. What is your advice to those people, or maybe practices that you have to stay not just mentally healthy but physically healthy?
Yeah. So today I'm operating in the spirit of my spoken word poetry hat, but I make my living every day as a mental health practitioner, right? A wellness counselor, primarily for black men and black boys. But whenever a lot of my clients, right, they start out thinking that their stress is directly connected to their business or their money, right, and things of that nature. And that's rarely the case, right? Usually the issue is that black men don't know how to be in a healthy relationship with their emotions, right? Because there's a level of just emotional incompetence and emotional illiteracy, right? In other words, when the emotions show up in your body, you don't know how to experience them, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's a large part of the work, man, teaching black men what it looks like to be holistic in their existence. So a major part of you being physically fit, right? So I'm going to say this, right? Everybody has discipline.
Yeah.
Right? The
ability to be disciplined.
No, everybody has discipline.
Okay.
So, because here's the thing. Everybody does something in their life that serves their life.
Yeah, gotcha.
Period. Whatever that may be. It may be you wake up every day and go to work. It may be you wake up every day and you eat.
Yeah.
It may be you wake up every day and you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
You do something every day that is considered, that discipline is attached to.
Yeah.
Right? The issue is many of us have somewhat of a blockage that is blocking our desire to do a thing.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So the issue ain't discipline. The issue is desire. So the question should be, what is blocking my desire to be physically healthy? What is blocking my desire to be financially healthy? What is blocking my desire to be in a happy, healthy relationship?
Yeah.
Because the discipline is there.
Yes.
You know how to do it. You're loyal to your barber.
Yeah.
You're loyal to your friends, right? You don't cuss them out.
Yeah.
But I don't know how not to cuss out my wife.
Yeah.
Right? No. There's just a lack of desire there because there's something blocking it as it relates to your wellness, your mental health, right?
Yeah.
So that's the conversation I like to have with men. Like, I think that we got to start digging deeper, right, and start asking different questions too, because different questions get us different answers, right? And here's a question I always ask people, right? And I know I'm going all the way around your question to get to a whole lot of different answers.
You're good.
But a question I always ask people, again, because I want to get to different solutions and different answers and different ways of seeing things that get us to a place of wholeness, right? So I always ask men, what brings you peace in life?
Yeah.
Because what we're all seeking and working towards is peace, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes what that looks like is we think we going after money, we going after the right woman, we going after the right friends and the right cars and houses. But no, what you're seeking in this life is peace, right?
Yeah.
So when men say, oh, I don't know what brings me peace. Well, I ask, well, what brings you the storm in your life?
Yeah.
And everybody can answer that question. Man, what brings me my storm is, when don't nobody want to listen to me, or when I'm broke, or when, right? So you know everything. You know everything that brings the storm in your life. So the absence of that will bring your peace. Right?
Yeah.
So if you accept the understanding that those things that bring your storm are not in your control, right? Completely. Right? Or to understand which of those things are in your control, right? Because Epictetus talks about, we'll be closer to mastering life once you accept what you can and cannot control. Right? I can't control that my mom died, right? I can't control that my brothers went to prison when I still needed them. I can't control it, but I can do the work to understand what's going on with me emotionally so I can control what my response is to the experiences that are happening to me in my life. So that's my long answer to your question about black men being well and being vulnerable and connecting our mental health to our physical health. It all goes back to those questions.
So that's good that, we're talking about the mental health and ways to deal with mental health. Now, I know that there are like levels to coping with the mental health. Some people choose this side, some people choose, another side. What is your advice for coping in that space as you are, getting better?
Yeah, man, great question. So I will just quickly talk about, again, healthy coping skills versus unhealthy coping skills.
Yeah.
Again, unhealthy coping skills are something you do to deal with stress. That doesn't make your life better, right? It don't make you healthier in the long run, right? Smoking, right? People don't know that tobacco is one of the number one preventable causes of death, period, right? We have 49,000 suicides last year, but we had almost 500,000 tobacco-related deaths in America, right?
Wow.
So people who are turning to that, right? Like, you got to ask yourself, like, is this making my life better, right? And the answer is no. I'm gonna just say it. The answer is no, right? So anything that you do that doesn't ultimately make your life better overall, that's an unhealthy coping skill.
Gotcha.
But what I would offer as a healthy coping skill is getting in the gym, right? Working out or running, right? I just adopted running as one of my new things. I've done 4 or 5Ks this year. Like, running is like my new high. That's how I get high. I run. Let me go get 2 or 3 miles in. I intentionally spend time with friends, or I have fun, right? Like I was talking earlier about, I go shoot pool as much as I can, right? Because shooting pool is fun for me, right? So that's what I encourage men to do, especially. Like, have intentional fun, right?
Gotcha.
Smoking cigarettes, it stink. Right? And it's just a whole lot of negative. Get away from all that smoking stuff, man. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Yeah, man. So you planted a lot of seeds, and I know this is a short interview, but there may be somebody watching right now that is like, something that he said resonates with me, man. Where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's give all the ways to connect to Chris James.
Absolutely. So you can connect with me at thechrisjamesjourney.com. So that's an easy way to connect with me. My organization is Creative Connections. So you can go to ourcreativeconnections.com. A few ways that I show up. Again, I serve as a wellness counselor. So I talk to black men about all things you need to talk about that's on your mind and in your heart so you can get to the best version of yourself. And I serve as a certified anger management specialist. A lot of people call me because the court told them they need to go to get some anger management training and sessions. But if you, I'll say this, most men in America have a unhealthy relationship with their anger. The goal is not to get rid of it, right? The goal is to be in a healthy relationship with it. And that's a lot of the work that I do. Also working with the National Council of Mental Well-Being to do work around suicide prevention and understanding just how to respond to that. Because that shows up in our lives too. So just check in with me, man. Again, Chris James Journey on all social media platforms. Just put it in your Google search, I'll come up.
Awesome, man. Yo, so this has been another episode of Go Live. I'm with my guy, Chris James. Yo, he's gonna kill it. Check out his poetry, check out his music, check out all things mental health, and we'll see you next time. Holla at your boy.
Your dream.